What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. As a post-match pint after Celtic won, Kilmarnock won. We're here at Malone's in Glasgow. As always, I've got Kenny with me to go over the game. Kenny, just coming into the pub there, I thought, could I just take a previous post-match pint for this season and re-upload it for today, because that is the same 90 minutes that we've watched play out time and time again this season, and we got away with it against First County a couple of weeks ago. We didn't get away with it today.
Just Groundhog Day of the type of a net performance that we've saw in about 90% of our home games this season. I think in wide areas, I've been a season ticket holder for over 30 years. It's about as cringe-worthy an output as I've seen from a collection of wingers in my time following the club, and that's not just the four that attempted to play today, that's including those that we've got out on loan, anyone that will take them. We've got a strike force that are just trying to get to know each other's basic game. Experiments that should happen in pre-season, not in the heat of title-defining matches. And we've got a defence that seem literally panic-stricken at any sort of reasonably dangerous cross into the box. A panic that feeds into even our most experienced, valuable player in Callum McGregor, who in the last 10 minutes of the game was playing like a pub player. He couldn't even put a pass together. Throw all that together and you think about, what is the manager doing to try and end up in this position? We'll probably talk about the recruitment. The recruitment's left us in a diabolical situation. But irrespective of all of that, the players that are on that park are paid way more than the players that they play every week. And the management, the one thing that Brendan Rodgers had, not just from his previous time at Celtic, from his whole career, he's had a great brain that in a game he can change a match and he can turn things around because he truly understands the game. And that was one thing that excited me about him coming back. It seems like the complete opposite. He seems to have no strategy around trying to get anything out of these players. He takes off Ida when we're trying to defend a lead. Not that Ida was anything great, but he's a focal point. He gives you somebody to hit. He gives you something to structure around to see a game out. He takes him off, brings Kyogo on, puts Kyogo forward, who we know is completely dysfunctional in this system. Immediately, that move puts us under pressure. He brings on Bernardo, and instead of saying to Bernardo, sit a bit deeper, be a bit more pragmatic, let's be mature about seeing this game out. Bernardo's completely lost trying to sort of support the front line, a dead jersey. I mean, he's got a Watt on the bench who's a central defensive midfielder. Okay, he's been out injured, but you're talking about bringing him on to see out 10 minutes against Kilmarnock at home. You're not throwing him into a Champions League final. Yeah. He's making big mistakes because he seems out of control as a manager. If you look at the league table for the last 17 fixtures, not 2, not 3 fixtures, 17, almost half a season, Celtic aren't second, they're third. Any logical person who looks at the trajectory of what's happening knows that we're going to lose this league title. We were frustrated in a title race. We might not be in one soon. Because the way we're headed, we're going to lose the league comfortably. It's difficult, Paul, to sit here having watched a treble, having sat here 10 months ago celebrating a treble, to now sit here and discuss how inept everything seems to be on the park, how inept it seems to be off the park. And it's difficult to try and find any constructive discussion, to be honest, about what's happened today. I'm not that sure where we go from here, barring something pretty unusual. We're headed in an uncomfortable place.
Aye, absolutely. I think coming into the game today, I talked a lot last night about the atmosphere on the ground and trying to get behind the team. And one of the things that I always think about, even with the European games, is does the crowd get up and back the team, and then what comes first? Is it the players giving the crowd something to get behind, or does the crowd push the team forward? But I think the difficulty this season is the performances have been so slow, sluggish, so lacklustre that there's not an awful lot for the crowd to get behind. And in the first half today, I don't think the first half performance today is by any means the worst first half we've seen at Celtic Park this season. There's a few contenders for that, and we've had worse. We score a good goal, Ralston finds Kyogo at the back post, it's a good header. But the story of this season is you're constantly looking for signs that the team can be a bit more brave, that they can be a bit more aggressive, that they can create more chances, that they can have more conviction about the way they play, they can control games better. I think we've fell into this trap, and this is a huge criticism of the manager, and people have pointed this out, maybe detractors from before he even came back. But as we've gone through the season, it seems that when we have a 1-0 lead, particularly at home, we fall in to this slow, risk-averse style of play that actually just invites the opposition and encourages them to come on to us. It's like the players can only pass the ball to their closest teammate. They can't take a risk. They can't play a ball through lines, through midfield. There's very little, as you say, quality from wide areas, but even when we work the ball into wide areas, it just seems to come back. And we've seen it time and time again this season that when we've had a lead at Celtic Park, we've just invited the opposition on, and then, as you touched on, the second half, the nerves are just contagious, and all of a sudden everybody has lost their head. Callum McGregor gets a ball falling out the sky in 75 minutes, and he just slices it. He just slices it into thin air when he's got time to take a touch, calm things down, try and let us keep possession. But it just seems there's this energy about the team all season, particularly at home, where I think the style is hurting us, but they just seem to lack conviction. We seem to lack conviction all over the pitch.
Teams that win trophies are built around two things. They have quality players. You don't win anything if you've not got quality players. But you also win nothing with quality players that don't have a good psychology. The manager has a limited input into the quality of a player. He can improve them to an extent. But the one thing that he's got a major influence on is the psychology and the chemistry of how the team function. The backbone of Brendan Rodgers' success as a manager has been a high press, a high counter press, an intensity in how you try and defend against sides. It's completely shot. It's completely lost. If anything, there was a 10-minute spell in the second half when we were at home to Kilmarnock. We seemed to be penned into our own right back area because of Kilmarnock's counter press. Yeah. We're floundering about in an embarrassing way, trying to get the ball out our own third. The complete opposite of what Brendan Rodgers has instilled throughout his whole career. He's also built his career around initiating a calmness in the players in moments of pressure. Look at when that ball fell to Callum McGregor with 10 minutes to go. Calmness. I mean, he was acting like a child. What Brendan Rodgers has built his career on is manifesting itself in the complete opposite of how Celtic are performing. And it's difficult to know why. There's maybe a number of nuances as why, but Brendan Rodgers is failing in terms of his managerial ability this season. And at the start of the season, I recognised the risks of bringing somebody back who's been there before, and does that lack progression? Is that a defeatist, a sort of unambitious way of looking at things? But I thought there was enough about him that it was a good appointment. That is looking now like a failure of an opinion, because he's now pushing the side into a situation where it's unravelling pretty rapidly. And how's that psychological problem going to change? Because this isn't a new thing. It's not like today we've come unstuck by some shock result. No. It's been happening all season. We seemed to defend corners well against St Mirren last week, but it was a complete anomaly to what's been happening all year. That was now obvious, just a moment in time. I'm not sure, Paul. I think the manager now, more than ever, that was a watershed result for me in my own mind. I've been somewhat a supporter of him so far all season, just because I think there's something there. His career has had enough longevity. But now, after that result today, he's under enormous pressure, and I'm not convinced in my heart of hearts it's something that can be reversed.
I agree. I've been supportive of him, and I think he's had a lot of grace from a lot of people, despite the fact that he left in a very controversial way the first time, and that we knew that a certain portion of the sport were going to be hostile to him coming back. But I think because of what's been going on off the pitch and the failure of the recruitment operation, people have been quite defensive of him. But there's absolutely no hiding place for Brendan Rodgers. He is under pressure. He should be under pressure. The thing that has annoyed me most about him this season is that he's said a few things in the media that just don't seem right. It doesn't seem like a manager who is in control of things. He seems like he's sort of risen to making comments he would never have made the first time round. I think last week, even after the St Mirren game, when Neil Lennon says, Brendan, eight wins and a draw, like you think there was some sort of crisis going on. It's a bit of a slap in the face to the support who have been watching week in and week out this season, and you can't hide the truth from the support because we watch it intently every single week, and we can see the performances have been miles off it. And this is a dysfunctional Celtic team. There's no getting away from that. And one of the things, when you come back to talking about the style, which is 100% the manager's responsibility, you come back to talking about the style and how it hasn't been suited this season to playing against teams at Celtic Park that come and defend deep and they camp in their own defensive third, 10 men behind the ball at all times. We can't even say that Kilmarnock did that today. Kilmarnock, particularly in the second half, as they did at Rugby Park when they beat us, they actually stepped up. They stepped up the pitch, they came to presses, and we've got so many limited football players, particularly in the back four, and because we play this slow build-up style. I mean, I think that spell you're talking about where we couldn't get out of our own right back area is around 62, 63 minutes it starts, and it comes from Liam Scales having the ball almost under no pressure on his own halfway line, playing a ball across to Stephen Welsh, but he plays it with his left foot and he turns Welsh back towards Joe Hart, and all of a sudden we're absolutely everywhere. Hart finds Ralston gives it to O'Reilly. O'Reilly fires a bouncing ball back to Joe Hart. We nearly lose it, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. And it's come from nothing really. It's come from a slack pass from Liam Scales, but all of a sudden, now we don't have the quality and we can't move the ball quick enough to get past Kilmarnock's press that we've invited on. It is totally dysfunctional.
That embarrassing 10-minute spell where Kilmarnock were out pressing us, the psychology's a problem, but it's symptomatic of the quality of player. How many signs have we made this season? 14 or something like that? If I had a crystal ball to say how many of them would you sign again, there's an argument to say 0, which is a completely absurd output of your recruitment strategy. Now, Celtic, and maybe we're not getting ahead of ourselves and looking at the overall strategy of the club and where we're headed, when theoretically we're actually tonight still top of the league, right? It might seem a bit knee-jerk, but I think it needs a clear out from top to bottom. But I think if I project what's likely to happen based on the last few games, we're going to win nothing. If we win nothing from the position we're in, you need to look at not just game by game, you need to look at the overall approach. We've got a majority shareholder that's been there for 30 years, doesn't come to an AGM. We've got a chief executive that's been here for 21 years, had a natural departure point when we lost 10 in a row. The most obvious time to just move on. We find a bit of success and he drags us kicking and streaming back into the past. There are other instances of managerial appointments throughout the club that you and I have talked about that just lack any ambition. Not just football clubs, any organisation that is in a position of strength needs to reinvent itself. Because if you don't reinvent yourself, if you just rely on what you've done in the past, you get swallowed up, you get caught up, and that's what we're seeing now. It's so obvious. And one of the biggest contributors to the failing is the recruitment. The reason that we can't get out of our own right back area is because we don't have the players to be able to do it. The reason we don't have the players to be able to do it is because of some nepotism within our own board. We've got the manager, the son of a chairman that's been there for 20 years trying to sign players, and he's made 14 signings, all of which are a failure. You can't do that. That won't set you back 6 months. That can set you back years. And that's why it's so painful, because you've watched something that was completely avoidable. And we had this lovely groove when Postecoglou was in, when Peter Lawwell was gone, when we were signing players with a really nice, in an innovative way from the Asia market, and we had a really nice hit rate of success. Since then, we've made a whole load of money, much more than anyone else in the country. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. And all we've done is revert back to our old ways of having no sort of progressive outlook, squandering the money and throwing ourselves into a position where it looks odds on that we're probably going to miss out on this bounty at the end of the season in the Champions League, which will drag us into a much more parallel with Rangers than we had ever thought that would happen, certainly just a few months ago. So there are much, much wider problems at play that you can accept. I can accept. Celtic are not going to win the league for the remainder of you and I lifetime. When you look at the last 12, 13 years, it might feel that way, and we've been sort of spoiled, right? We've sat in this seat many times with champagne, probably too many more than the normal sort of, people growing up watching Celtic typically would have, and it's been great. And you can accept losing the league, but you cannot accept thrusting yourself back into a position of being inferior of your own doing. And that's what's happened. And that might sound a bit sort of petulant because you say, well, hang on, you've won all these titles. You're just a self-entitled Celtic fan. That's a wrong way of looking at it. That's an unambitious, unfair way of looking at it. You've got to look at the problems that are presenting themselves today. And those problems are so obvious. Not just you and I spoke about trying to limit the signings to £6 or £7 million players, 2 or 3 in the summer, and buy when you're strong. Everyone thought that. Celtic board didn't. They thought, we'll buy 15 players at £2 million and see what happens, and it's killing us.
Yeah, there's no doubt it is killing us, and you're pushing at an open door to talk about the strategy of the club, and I think that is where everything comes from. You mentioned that we've brought Brendan Rodgers back, and despite the fact that I thought he was the best manager available when the possibility of him coming back became real, I think it's another one for the Dermot Desmond playbook. That the first choice Celtic manager, as if he's in Dermot Desmond's phone book, and has he managed the club before? We've been here with Neil Lennon. It didn't work. It was an absolute disaster, and it's unfolding in a similar way by bringing Brendan Rodgers back. And it's about the thinking that brings about these situations. If that thinking is still there, we'll make the same mistakes again. We've been making these same mistakes and handing away positions of strength when the club's had more resources than it's ever had for 10 and 15 years. That it's not likely to change. We can change the manager, and a lot of people will think that we should, but who knows where we'll end up next? Is it more likely we'll pull another Ange Postecoglou out the hat, or will we end up with another Ronnie Dyler if we veer away from MD in Dermot Desmond's phone book? It seems like the club, there's no doubt the club lacks ambition. It lacks progressive, modern thinking, fresh ideas in a number of areas, and that's why the club can never push forward. We're seeing the fruits of that now again, and so many people have commented that the similarities with the COVID season this season, and that is similar to how it's playing out. And one of the big things that people always level at Celtic, you've touched on are we just petulant and spoiled or self-entitled? People for the outside look in and think Celtic have won all these titles, and at the minute they don't win a title, it's sack the board and everybody that runs the club has to go. But that's outsiders. They don't understand the position Celtic have been in, and Celtic have the most resources they've ever had, and they keep making the same mistakes, and people are fed up with it. The supporters are fed up with it, and the executive or the board that run the club never show any real intent to change it. There's never any desire to bring in fresh ideas, to progress, to get better, and that's why when the mask of winning the title slips and we don't manage it, that's the first thing people go to, because it's always bubbling below the surface. And the situation this season has brought us right back to that. If we go back to the game, though, today, Kenny, it was really clear. Again, you mentioned just before we sat down the similarities with the Ross County game where we managed to hold on. Brendan Rodgers is saying after the game today, I thought we were going to get away with one. Well, we got away with one against Ross County. We got away with one at Easter Road. We didn't get away with it today. How many games have we got away with one this season? Quite a few. But it was clear to me today that Kilmarnock were always going to get a chance, and it actually comes from the move originally starts from Yang getting into the box when we're looking for a second goal to go and kill the game, and he loses it, and then they come down the left hand side. I think it's Watson at the back post heads it in against Bernabei, but there was a real ominous feel about Kilmarnock getting that equaliser today.
I mean, as soon as they brought Van Veen on, I don't know why he didn't start Van Veen. I presume he's maybe not match fit, but everything was just building towards that problem. And you know when you're Bernardo had a really easy chance.
Good chance,
just to put the ball wide of the keeper and kill the game. He blows it. He blew it against Aberdeen. We can't. It's back to the mentality again, isn't it? If you're a clinical side, you'll put them away, and we're not worried about Bernabei at the back post. Bernabei at the back post is just, it's hard to even discuss it. Bernabei should have been sent back to South Africa 6 months after he signed.
Argentina.
Now, South America, sorry, I meant to say. Now he's playing in title-defining games 2.5 years later.
Yeah.
It's dreadful. Down that left-hand side, I mean, Ralston, he's putting in a bit of a brave performance today, Ralston. He's well-intended, he's all sort of bluster, but there's a limit to his quality. The reason that crosses come in for the left-hand side is because he's playing in a way that's pretty much out of control. And it was always going to happen. It should have happened against Ross County. We didn't. Sometimes it's quite nice to win 1-0 when you compose yourself. You bring on a more defensive system and you see it out, and there's a satisfaction in that. The reason we won 1-0 against Ross County was pot luck. I mean, they missed a sitter in the last minute. How many saves did their goalkeeper have today other than we scored one goal? He had one other relatively. I thought that was a reasonable save, right?
Yeah.
Joe Hart's had to, from just basic balls into the box, he's 2 point-blank saves where he's had to try and fire them over the bar.
Good saves.
Other times where he's sort of all over the shop he's trying to punch things that, a pub goalkeeper should catch. There's just you knew the whole thing was just building and building and building to an equaliser. We've seen that story so many times. And I'm just not convinced. Based on if Brendan Rodgers came out after the game saying it'd have been nice to get away with one, he's off the back of getting away with
getting away with 2 in the last 2 weeks.
What an absurd way to sort of come out in the media. Yeah. He should come out and own it and say, look, we deserved that, guys. We need to improve. Maybe he can't say that. I don't know, but it's just symptomatic of the fact that we're kidding ourselves on.
In fairness, he did say something quite strange about we got whatever we deserved today, but also he thought we were going to get away with one. Again, he didn't say again, but as we've just covered, it's happened numerous times this season.
We're actually better away from home because it seems to me that we've developed a situation where our own players that are paid way more than anyone else that comes to Celtic Park are scared of they're scared of the environment. Look at Kuhn, right? He's coming on. He's terrified of the weight of the jersey. It's so obvious. Lawwell's sons went out and thought, that's a goodbye. God knows why. And he's coming on and he's fearful of what's around him. He'll probably go away from home. He looked a little bit brighter against St Mirren because he's not got 60,000 people on his back. That mentality will win you nothing. That mentality does not surprise me in any way that we're third in a league table of the last 17, 18 games.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about the trajectory that we're on in the context of the title, you look at the games we've got. I don't look at any game. I haven't looked at any game this season and thought, well, that's a banker, because we haven't convinced at any point this season. And you look at the games remaining, you think we've got 2 derbies to come. It's actually, in a strange way, it's the derbies that you're least worried about, because we've went into both derbies already this season kind of low on confidence in the team and thinking we're missing key players and not really sure what the outcome's going to be. We've managed to get 6 points from them. So worst case scenario, we're going to end this season, even if we lose the 2 remaining derbies, we're going to end at 50-50. We've won 2, they've won 2. Worst case scenario, right? We could still go and beat them once or twice. But the biggest concern for us this season is we have thrown away so many points, and it's clear that we're not improving. It started with St Johnstone. We had Motherwell at home. Hearts beat us. Today it was Kilmarnock. We've lost at Rugby Park. We've made so many mistakes against the rest of the league, and that is the thing that's going to cost us.
Look, we're not... Is it helpful to sit here and say that when we're theoretically 1 point top of the league's gone? Of course not, right? Celtic weren't built on that level of defeatism. There's not that many games left. How many games left? 12?
12 for us, yeah.
Could we beat Rangers twice? We probably could, as the erratic nature of how we play. And if we do that, we probably will nudge the title home. Could Brendan Rodgers ultimately find what he's built many, many years of success on when it really comes to shove? My instincts are at the moment, no, but it's possible, right? There is a possible route to still resolving this. And the side they've got to get to grips with that concept pretty immediately. The problem in believing that is, as a supporter, they've had so many shocks to the system that you would think they would respond to that they're not doing it. Do we think we're going to respond to this one? No.
Been waiting all season on it.
Been waiting all season. So it's not logical to think but there's still a hope there, right? We've still got to persevere. And I think Brendan Rodgers should walk in the morning and we should bring John Kennedy. And some people probably have that opinion, and it's probably not a completely irrational opinion. I don't think that's the right thing to do. If we lose the league by 7 or 8 points, do we need a complete rebuild and a new manager? Yeah, because we won a treble and we've thrown the whole thing away. Because we're not a charity. We're not here to just give people longevity and give them a second chance. We're Celtic. We're here to try and win titles. And people that do that shouldn't be gifted the right to keep going. He's had he's had a reasonable enough time. He's been let down in a really strong way by the recruitment. Whatever, when he went to Mallorca to speak to Michael Nicholson, and when he went and had dinner with Callum McGregor, whatever he was told during those meetings was flawed. Completely, and presumably that was the premise of him coming back. So he's been let down badly, but he's let us down badly. He let us down badly today with his decision making. He let us down badly today by his inability to motivate a side that should be levels above a Kilmarnock team that turn up at Celtic Park. Look, that's getting ahead of ourselves. It looks unlikely now that we're going to put a run together that's going to get a league and cup double over the line. We've seen good sides do that. Yeah, it wasn't a good side today. But we've got to get behind the team. All you and I can do is get behind the team and see where it goes. There's still a chance, but we're on very, very uncomfortable ground.
Aye, just on the point about the derbies there, and maybe we go and take 6 points because we unexpectedly did it in the first two derbies. My concern would be, could we drop 6 points against the rest of the league between now and the end of the season? The way we're playing, probably. It's difficult. It's really difficult. I mean, we go to Motherwell next week. Every game seems like a real hard slog. As I say, there's no games you look at and think, do you know what, that's a decent run of fixtures, because we're making such heavy work week in and week out. We experimented again today, as you've covered, with Ida and Kyogo slightly deeper. That seems like clutching at straws to me.
Yeah.
How do you think we go into that Motherwell game next week? Do we persist with that? Because it hasn't really freshened things up, and it's not really led to us creating an awful lot more chances.
I'd keep Ida in. Not that he's been world beaten. We've not signed a world beater, right? When we had players playing in that type of position that were quality, a Hoydonk, a Vennegoor, a Hesselink, they come in ready-made players. You had to look at them for 2 minutes to know that they were going to, your team could shape around them. He's not at that level, right? He's a young guy, but he's played in English. Let's be relative to where we are. He's played in the English Premier League. I think he's been pretty tidy so far for Celtic. Today he was quite a good pivotal sort of pivot point for us up front. He laid in, I think it was McGregor, clean through with a wonderful little touch in the first half. I don't think he deserves to be dropped. I think you're going to need, no, Kyogo's an idol of yours. I think we just need to take him out the side. That position where he's playing deep, it works in moments because he's such a clever guy, right? He gets on the ball when he can make things happen. But I think functionally it's a problem. We're light in the midfield. He doesn't play anywhere near enough close to Ida. The benefit of having someone who's a good target man is if your striker's right beside him, he gets in. Henrik Larsson's career was exacerbated by the quality of Chris Sutton because he could play around beside him. They had a relationship. There is absolutely no relationship between Kyogo and Ida. They've never spoken to each other. You can't persist with that when you've got 11 games to go and you're trying to win a title. I don't know, Paul, we're clutching at straws, whatever we do. I'd take Kyogo out. Who do you bring back in? I'd keep Ida on. Who do you bring back in? It's Bernardo or Awata. Awata's so presumably out of fitness, you can't. You're going to need to bring Bernardo back in. Bernardo's got a bit of an enigma because he is someone that's got quality. I think he showed it before Christmas. Great feet, great brain, but it's sporadic. It's not coming through in the level that we need to try and win a title. Throw Hatate in there and we could win this title, but we can't. So we're going to need to limp through. I'd bring Bernardo in. I'd try and get him to play a bit more pragmatically so that he's helping out with the backline. He's playing in a bit more of a balanced way. And I'd take Kyogo out and hopefully just get the benefit of Ida being a target man. But clutching at straws isn't too far for the truth of anything I've just said.
Aye, absolutely. There you go. That's it for the post-match pint. Like this video, comment your own thoughts on the game below. We struggle on. We go to Motherwell next week. We'll see you for the build up to that one. Thank you.